Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. The world of work is vastly different today compared to what it was just 2 years ago. Remote and hybrid work have become a new standard and expectation for workers who crave flexibility. For the future of the workforce, Gen Zers, the idea of an in-person office might be a completely foreign concept that could present many challenges as companies start to open doors and pursue a hybrid strategy. For those who've been in the workforce 2 years or less, a remote setting has been considered the norm since the pandemic. Today, we welcome Amy Leschke-Kahle, Vice President of Performance Acceleration at the Marcus Buckingham Company, an ADP company, to discuss how companies can meet new entrants to the workforce where they want to work. Amy, it is great to see you. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks for having me back, Jill. It's good to be here.
And the last time we spoke was during the pandemic. We discussed how companies and leaders can shift to engage a remote workforce. Now we're back, and this time talking about companies readjusting their strategies and how they can build a workforce that meets the needs of new entrants and where they want to work. So let's dive right in. How different is Gen Z compared to other generations who remember a time when they went into an office every day?
Yeah, well, they're a little bit different. They're not that different, and like the rest of us, the thing that over the last 2 years, the thing that has kind of separated Gen Z from how many of us in other generations have grown up is that they are the first fully digital generation. They've grown up with phones, instant access to everything, always on. I mean, these are the folks that never had to walk to the library to look something up in an encyclopedia for a school paper. So everything has been easily accessed, easy to consume their entire time that they've been in the workforce. If you think about it though, over the last 2 years, especially when it comes to how that surfaces in the world of work, we've all been experiencing that exact same thing. So that's not unique just to Gen Z.
What are some best practices to ensure there isn't a generational divide in support and culture?
So I think the best practices are the best practices. It's not specific to Gen Z. And one of the things I'd like to caution all of us on is to treat a generation as a monolithic group of people, because they're not. In fact, Gen Z is incredibly diverse, both in their experiences and that they've had, how they've grown up, where they've grown up, have they gone to school, have they not gone to school, all the diverse things as we would characterize. And so what's good for Gen Z, quite frankly, and what they're kind of expecting out of the workforce is good for the rest of us. They want to be treated like grown-ups. They want to be respected for the contributions that they're making to their organizations, no matter where they are in the organizational hierarchy. They want to work for organizations that are making a difference, and not just making a difference from a kind of a social community perspective, but making a difference in their industries and in their markets. That serves all of us, not just Gen Z. We all want those things.
Is there a way to be smarter in how you experiment with this?
Yeah, absolutely. And this really speaks to what we talked about last time as well around hybrid work for employees who actually can work hybrid or remote. We're seeing a lot of divides, at least I am with the clients that I'm working with and the organizations I'm talking to. We're seeing a lot of divides between executives and kind of everyday workers like you and I. And what we're seeing is that executives are wanting people, not always, but a lot of times, to come back into office, to come back on site. And employees don't want to do that so much. They want to have the agency to kind of choose and pick how they work, when they work, where they work from. And so one of the ways that organizations can kind of bridge that divide, if you will, is to run some experiments. Let's not assume that people need to be on site. And let's also not assume, by the way, that they should be off site. And we have the ability now to ask questions to, for example, measure employee engagement really frequently, listen to our employees frequently through technology, easy to access everybody, and ask them a few simple questions. We have the ability to even run A/B tests. So we do that in technology, right? You have a feature or something new in a piece of software, and you have two different groups of people try it for a while and see what happens. We can do that with our workforce. We can say, hey, pick a day to come in the office. We want you to come in office 2 days a week, pick your day. And we can say, we want everybody in office another, Wednesday and Thursday for another group of employees. Let's see what works best and then do that. Don't assume what we read in the headlines is going to be great for your organization. It might be, but we don't know. Your organization is unique.
Let's talk about turnover. It seems to be a bigger concern with Gen Z. Is that true? And why do you think that is?
I think turnover right now is a concern for everybody. We may be thinking about Gen Z, they may be turning over perhaps a little bit faster. I mean, they themselves individually are experimenting as well, trying to find that place where they can feel as if they can make their own unique best contributions. But again, it's true for every single one of us. And with the great resignation, reshuffle, rethink, I don't know, whatever we want to call that, we're being very, I'm going to say reactive to the market, which we need to be. But we need to start to think more proactively around the market and around talent. And again, it helps Gen Z, but it helps all of us. We need to start thinking in a way that just isn't, how do we address the immediate problem, but how do we address the longer term opportunity of retaining our employees?
There are more jobs and more options for employees today. How do you address that challenge when it comes to turnover?
Well, there's one thing that we know, actually a couple things that we know. I just presented some new data on this actually this week. We know, and we've known this for a while, that the biggest lever that we have in terms of helping employees be all in at work, we call it fully engaged, is attention from their most important people at work. Usually that's their team leader, their manager, their people leader, whatever you call that in your organization. So we know that really frequent attention moves the needle on employees being all in, fully engaged at work really quickly. We also know that employees who are fully engaged are much more likely to stay with an organization voluntarily. So if you kind of do a little bit of a geometry proof, kind of an HR geometry proof, we know that attention moves the needle on engagement. We know that fully engaged employees are more likely to stay. So the bottom line is, if we want people to stay with our organizations, we need to create organizations that are high attention, paying attention to each other for the best of us. I want you to see me for my own unique best. When we do that, that's when we see turnover go down.
What can leaders start to do immediately to support all generations?
Pay attention. I mean, we're human beings. We crave attention from people who are important to us. And in the context of work, that's our bosses, our managers. And the best thing that managers can do, and do it really frequently, I mean, at least once a week, is very light touch attention to your employees. It's so easy, Jill. What are you working on this week? What help do you need from me? Are you doing okay? Ask those 3 questions really frequently, super light touch. And it's a game changer. We want to be seen for the best of us. We want people to know how we're contributing and be recognized for that.
All right, Amy, we appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.